His grandmother opened one of the urns and actually found ashes already inside one of the urns.
Not only have you lost my loved one, but now you're selling my loved one in urns on Amazon? I think that you have to trade in who you are, where you come from in order to keep this job.
A jury is always a wild card. You can never predict what a jury is going to do.
I feel like this field inspires a lot of imposter syndrome, and I think a lot more attorneys experience that than we're willing to admit.
All lawyers make bukus of money.
Ooh, this is a spicy one. What's your biggest career mistake so far?
Ooh.
That's the one.
Welcome to the Real Tough Lawyers podcast. I am attorney Christina Brooks.
And I'm attorney Reginald Penn.
In this podcast, we're going to talk about what makes us lawyers. We're going to talk about tips and suggestions we have for law students.
We're also going to talk about some really unusual cases from all across the country.
We are starting a new segment where we're discussing real unusual cases. So the first case we're going to talk about is called Lyft. Lyft is about a father in Boca Raton who has a 14 to 15-year-old daughter who had gone to the beach. From time to time, they use his Lyft account in order to transport themselves around town. So this particular day, they'd gone to the beach, so he'd gotten a $75 charge on his Lyft account. And he confirmed with them, hey, you guys went to the beach today? And they said yes. He said, well, I've been charged $75 for damage in the Lyft. Okay. So he was sent pictures of the damage that was allegedly caused inside of the Lyft vehicle. He showed the pictures to his daughters, and his daughters took a look at them, and they immediately saw that the pictures were something that had been doctored by some type of AI called Gemini. They were like, Dad, hey, you can see the logo in the corner where it says Gemini, created these images. So once he figured that out, he contacted Lyft and entered a complaint with them, explaining to them what had happened, that the Lyft driver had fraudulently submitted this claim for the damage in his vehicle, and he wanted some type of recourse for what had happened. However, Lyft's response to him was that they were going to unmatch the driver and the rider. The dad didn't think that was enough. He had posted on a Facebook forum about what had happened, and in fact got a lot of responses from other individuals who had been through the same type of fraudulent scheme. What's your thoughts about that?
I completely understand the father. I don't think I would feel comfortable in that kind of a situation. You're already a Lyft driver. I don't know you. You have my unaccompanied minor child in your vehicle, and now you're spreading lies or being fraudulent with both Lyft as an industry and as a platform and me as consumer. Kind of lays way for a lot of dangerous situations to happen. I don't think that retaining this driver is necessarily a smart move on Lyft's behalf.
I agree.
I think they definitely should have gone a little bit more. They should act just because of the size of their company, as well as what they do. I think they should act in an abundance of caution and kind of get rid of this person.
Yeah, as a company, your image should be very, very important to you. I think that speaks a lot to the Lyft driver's character. If he's willing to submit a fraudulent claim about something like that, how do you not know that he's going to not lie about something else, something maybe bigger, more important than something as simple as a $75 damage claim? So I think that is very, very important. And I think that they need to do more than just unmatch the driver and the rider. Yeah, there should be other recourse, whether or not he's banned for 6 months, permanently banned, it just depends. And they also probably need to go back and evaluate whether or not he's done it before.
So our next case comes to us out of Hillsborough County. There was an art teacher with some students who was having a hard time gathering and gaining their attention. As a result, she ultimately took a doll from one of the students and formed a noose out of a phone charging cable and hung the doll in the classroom. Students first responded nervously, but then ultimately made a complaint to administration, principals, and all the necessary parties. The teacher was subsequently fired as a result. In the meantime, the teacher was alleging that it was just a joke. What do you think, Christina? Has this gone too far?
Extreme. As a former teacher, I know it's important for your students to be paying attention to whatever it is that you are instructing them. She's an art teacher. So you're gonna have some students in your class that are not necessarily going to be interested in what it is that you may be trying to teach them about art. The fact that she did this was completely racially insensitive, completely offensive. She did not consider, the feelings of the minority students in her classroom, with this being a black doll that she chose. These are some issues that are deep rooted in the history of African Americans. Being able to see someone make a joke and a mockery out of something that our ancestors have actually lived through and gone through and have experienced, by some of them actually being hung by nooses and trees. That's something that it was very offensive, unexcusable. And I think that Hillsborough County got this one right. Firing that teacher was the absolute necessary thing to do. Hopefully, her teaching certificate can be revoked. We would not want her in another classroom teaching other students of different races when this is the thing that she finds funny, by offending them with things that are deeply rooted in hatred and racial divide in our country.
I think I do agree with you there. I do think that Hillsborough County did get that right. But I am a little bit ambivalent about the subject, especially because of the context of the situation. I look at it from the perspective of, this is an art class. Art sometimes is intended to create or evoke emotion. I might look at it from the perspective of a museum, or if you go to the African American History Museum out in DC, for example, some of the pictures and the things you'll see there are equally as traumatizing, if not more. I think where and when this happens, I think the age of the students also matters.
The audience,
Um,
completely. Yes.
I think, but I still think Hillsborough got it right here. I think middle schools might be arguably too young, and I don't think she had any other intent behind what she did, other than to garner their attention. It was not for an artistic appreciation. It was not for to teach the students something, or any of those things. I think this was just merely maybe a hateful, maybe even emotional response to the lack of attention she was getting from her students.
She definitely wanted a reaction. It may not have been the reaction that she was looking for, but she got the reaction, and it was the appropriate reaction by being fired. You are right. Sometimes art is designed in order to invoke some type of feeling or emotion. But I think when you're dealing with students and individuals of this age group, there should be boundaries with certain things. Maybe with adults, even I think adults would find that offensive, but definitely kids. And I feel like that student that knew that it was something that was wrong and felt the need and the courage to speak up and take this information and issue to administration, I commend him. He did a great job. But yeah, I think that she just allowed her inner thoughts and feelings on racial issues to be on the forefront, and front and center in her classroom. And that just was not the appropriate place. Or, for a teacher in that profession, you should not be the type of person that has those type of ideas.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. What if she was intending it to be an art exhibit for her middle school students? What if she went as far as getting permission slips signed by the students' parents? Would it be okay then?
As a black man, if you had a child, do you think that you would authorize and sign a permission slip for your child to witness something like that?
I'm
I know
not.
I wouldn't.
I don't have
By any
kids.
means. Like, I would go straight to the school board, like,
Right.
you gotta be kidding me. Like, even to ask me whether or not it is okay to, give you authorization to subject my child to that. This is something that we're trying to move away from, our past and our history, not, have our children experience the same thing that our ancestors went through.
But then would you sign a permission slip for your sons to go to an African American history museum and see pictures of real racist experiences, pre-civil rights,
Age appropriate.
age appropriate?
Age appropriate,
Okay.
yes. But it's not the teacher's place to subject my child to these type of things in an educational environment. You're supposed to be educating my child. And if you were trying to educate them on the racial tension and the issues of the past, then there were other ways to do it other than just displaying a doll being hung from, the ceiling.
So then it begs the question, when would when is age appropriate for this kind of topic?
I would say definitely maybe 11th, 12th grade, maybe college, but definitely not middle school.
I think I'd want to start that a little bit earlier myself, because I think it's part of history. I mean, if you're going to learn history, I think you have to learn every part of it,
You can
not
teach me
just.
about it without displaying it.
I agree.
Yeah,
I
you
agree.
can definitely, I can learn about it, I can read about it, but I don't have to actually see a doll hanging from the ceiling depicting the same things that I know other people have gone through.
Right.
Like there's some people who actually may have had family members that have been hung. That is a traumatic experience.
I agree.
That's something that a child should not be subjected to.
I agree. I think the means don't justify the ends at all.
Absolutely.
There could have been a better way to do this, and especially as a teacher, especially as an art teacher, I think the nature of your job
But think about what
requires you to
she
become
said
more
her
creative.
goal was. She was just trying to get them to pay attention to the art.
Right.
Pay
And
attention. So you're attempting to grab attention of middle schoolers by showing them a doll hanging. That's not how you get attention.
that's fair. No, I wholeheartedly agree, and I and I think I have less leeway for art teachers because I expect you to be creative. so
Definitely.
yeah, I definitely agree. But I do think Hillsborough County got it right. They stopped the situation before it could have gotten worse, because if they let this go, who knows what was going to happen next. And as personal injury attorneys, I think we're always looking at notice as one of the big requirements of our cases, whether or not someone or an entity knew someone had a propensity to act in a certain way. And I think this is exactly how Hillsborough handles this to keep any other situation from developing. Like, as middle school, would you not allow them to go to African American History Museum? Like, would you
Yes, but an African American History Museum is going to have certain things on display. That's not a museum.
But okay, so say they're middle school, right? Because this is
In
this
an
is a
African American History Museum, it's not something being depicted by a white teacher. She was racist.
okay. I
Hands
get
down.
that. I
She
get
was
that.
racist.
So middle
And
school
she
is
had racist motives behind what she did.
okay.
That's not the same. African American History Museum is about teaching and educating. She was not trying to teach and educate the history of hanging. She was
True.
trying to offend people and get their attention.
I can agree.
So this next case is absolutely insane. So this scenario was out of Los Angeles, California. There was a gentleman whose grandfather passed away. So when his grandfather passed away, he decided to order several urns from Amazon in order for him and other family members to all have a piece of grandfather's ashes. So they'd order the urns. When the urns came, his grandmother opened one of the urns and actually found ashes already inside one of the urns. So she was questioning, like, hey, did you order like a pre-filled urn? And he was like, no, I ordered, brand new urns. And she was like, hey, there's remains already in this urn that we've received. So he contacted Amazon, and Amazon's response was to the nature of, hey, we can offer you a $19.99 refund, or you can send it back. They totally did not understand the gravity of the situation, and he grew frustrated with them. So what he did was he went to the news station and explained to them what happened. And once he did that, Amazon reached out to him and assured him that they would do their best to find out where these ashes and the urns came from, and to reunite the rightful owners of these ashes with what they had that came in this order. What do you think about that?
I think they should call Osmore, Francis, and Pettis because this is insane. I don't think. First of all, someone is missing in all seriousness, someone is missing a loved one. This is a very serious thing. I'd be livid.
Devastating.
Can you imagine someone's homegoing services and their choose cremation to possibly as the same family, kind of spread it amongst the family so everyone's got some of their loved ones' remains. I think this is horrible. How do you get to the point where you have lost someone's remains? They are now being passed around in these urns and then being ultimately sold on Amazon. I would feel not only I can't explain to you how I would feel.
Violated.
Yeah, because
Violated.
not only have you
Yes.
lost my loved one, but now you're selling my loved one in urns on Amazon.
And the fact that the customer service rep didn't quite understand how to address the issue. It's almost like they were taking it as though it was an issue that they had a pre-written script to respond to. We can offer you a 1999 refund or you can send it back. No, like this is something that does not get resolved by offering me a refund or asking me to send it back. So the fact that it was escalated to the appropriate officials that could actually do something about finding the family, I think that was a good thing. But yeah, that is something that you would never think that would happen to you or your loved ones. That's not something that happens every day. But I think that a level of trust is broken. You trusted these individuals with your family member to make sure that they handle the body with care and dignity. And there's nothing that screams dignity with misplacing my loved one's ashes and sending them to another family. Like it's just there's so many things that have been, procedures I feel like that have been broken and violated, as a result of this.
These are one of those weird cases where it makes it this is one of those weird cases where it makes it kind of complicated for you to separate yourself from it as an attorney versus a victim. Because even as an attorney here, I could be a bit emotional about this. This is because now you realize you kind of wonder how far this mistake goes back. Because in
Or how
order,
many times it's happened before.
correct, or
Yes.
how many people are, remains are possibly missing, or a family has been given the wrong remains at this entire time, thinking they've had the remains of their loved one, but it it sounds horrible. It's been sold on Amazon.
Of
On
all
on
places.
top of that, I don't know if you've ever done refunds with Amazon. I've tried it. It doesn't feel like that person you're chatting to is a real person. It kind of feels like AI, which would kind of make it worse.
It does.
And it kind of shows you one of the inherent flaws of AI itself and its lack of empathy or sympathy, its ability to kind of relate to the humanity
Or even them being
of
able to
people.
comprehend what's really going on, like
Absolutely.
the seriousness of this issue, like of the mistake that's been made. And in my mind, I'm like, so are they taking urns that are being used from funeral homes and selling them? Like, how in the world would you get an urn with ashes already in it? Like that, there's
Correct.
just so many questions that I have.
Is it a specific funeral home? Is it the same funeral home that's giving us that's kind of funneling or working with this company
Well, it
to
was a third
fill
party
urns?
vendor. So it probably is some type of funeral home that is providing the urns to Amazon.
Right, but you almost wonder if it's the same funeral home. Is it a big corporation of
Mm,
funeral homes that
okay.
are maybe national, international? Do they have more than one facility,
Mhm.
or is it just a whole bunch of different unrelated entities that are ultimately selling urns or providing human remains in these urns to be sold for none of this case makes sense to me at all. I just see so many problems in
And
it,
it's like,
and
you said I can send it back. So if I send it back, what were you gonna do with those remains? Were you gonna just trash them, discard them? Like, what were you gonna do before I press the issue of you finding the rightful owner of these? It's just like so many issues. It's an all around bad
it
situation.
is, and it's shocking because, in all honesty, I do agree with you. I think some family members might not even think twice about what was in it and just throw it out.
Mhm.
So with Amazon on this one, I don't think they went far enough. I
Not until
think
they were pushed to go far enough.
I don't think they were. I still don't think they went far enough. They should have banned the seller. I don't think the
Good
seller should
point.
be. I don't think the
Good
seller
point.
should be allowed to sell any of their products on Amazon anymore.
Good point. There should be some type of processes in place that this should not have happened.
Christina, you're not going to believe this one. This one comes to us out of Grapevine, Texas. Saying a lot without saying a lot.
Yes.
Ultimately, a gentleman was operating his Tesla Cybertruck in a lake where ultimately the vehicle sunk and had to be pulled out by a wrecker because he decided to show his friends the Cybertruck's wade mode. Apparently, this wade mode is intended for shallow rivers and crossings, maybe creeks or something of the sort. It ultimately heightens the suspension of the vehicle so that it can cross these shallow bodies of water. In this case, all of the participants and passengers were removed safely from the vehicle. But of course, there is some extensive damage to the vehicle. What are your thoughts?
Let me first say, thank God there were no casualties. This obviously was not something that was done with caution or care or maybe following the manual instructions. I mean, sounds like the vehicle obviously just did not perform the way that they intended it to perform. The owner of the vehicle may try to say it's a products liability issue, which it just sounds like it's user error. Uh, honestly, it's something that they probably caused a lot of damage to the vehicle, in which I'm sure a warranty is not going to cover it. They possibly could have had casualties. There could have been injuries sustained. It wasn't something that sounded like it was a great idea, to say the least.
I have a lot of questions about this one personally.
A lot.
How did we get here? Is the first
Bingo.
question. And then I don't think that I would have gotten in the vehicle
Touche.
with any of my friends who decided that they were going to purchase a new electronic vehicle at that,
To put in
an
the water.
electric vehicle to put in the water in a lake with, a depth we don't fully understand or comprehend.
I may have gotten in with a life jacket on
Would you?
and the window rolled down so I could escape.
You're much better than I am. But this is an interesting one. I almost kind of feel like maybe the passengers almost assumed the risk in this one.
Definitely.
This is kind of a dangerous situation. I think I would have been more of an onlooker than a participant in this vehicle. I almost wonder what the driver and owner's thought was. I'm not entirely sure if he understood what the wave mode in his vehicle was intended for, or maybe he just had an overinflated sense of what it could do. Um,
I'd like to know whether or not there was any intoxication involved, whether or not the passengers were aware of what he was about to do with the vehicle. Like you said, just so many questions.
I'm willing to bet there might be a little involved. This is we're laughing here, but and I
It's
think
not a
it's
laughing
only
matter.
and I think it's only because everyone is safe.
Correct.
Thank God. But it could have been much worse. And that could have been a dangerous situation. Unfortunately, I don't imagine that this is going to be the last of that kind of situation. I think there's still going to be someone else who tries something very similar. I think especially as technology continues to grow and develop, these new features will inspire people to kind of try these kinds of things or trust their vehicles beyond their limits and measures or the intended purposes.
I agree. I just hope that they have the financial means to buy another vehicle once they've ruined their vehicle.
And that nobody gets hurt doing it.
Correct.
This has been our real unusual cases segment with the real tough lawyers. We want to know what you think. Let us know in the comments.
What's the biggest lie law students believe about becoming a lawyer? So I actually have two. The first one I feel like is that all lawyers make bukus of money. That's not true. Okay. I think it depends on what practice area you go into. And I think the second one is that you have to go to a top tier law school in order to be successful. I don't think that's true. I know it's not true because of the fact that I went to Florida A&M University College of Law. It is not a top tier, top 10 law school. However, I have done very well since graduating from FAMU College of Law. So I think that it kind of shows that that's not a true assessment. I think that you need to go where it is that you feel like you are going to shine, where you are going to blossom, and where you are going to have an opportunity to grow into yourself. What do you think the biggest lie law students believe about becoming a lawyer?
I think that you have to trade in who you are, where you come from in order to keep this job. I think there's a certain level of professionalism and a certain level of introspection and retrospection that you should do to conduct yourself in a lot of these environments. But I don't believe that it requires that you get rid of all those things about yourself, all those little personal details, those things that make you you, because I think that's absolutely necessary in this field as a matter of fact, because you will have those clients that you may relate to more than others as a result of it. For example, I know plenty of lawyers. I know lawyers who are musicians, who are DJs, who they're boaters in their spare time. They do all kinds of different things, and these are things that you don't necessarily have to get rid of. You have to keep your humanity. In fact, I think it might make you a better lawyer, having those different sides to you. But I do have a thing about yours. I am a proud FAMU College of Law Rattler, always striking from the top. We've done some great things coming from FAMU. The alumni pool has done amazing things. And I wholeheartedly agree. You don't have to be a tier one or tier two school to produce amazing alumni. Because we know here in the Central Florida area and all throughout the country, or our alumni boast plethora of judges, government officials, and attorneys all over the place. So I definitely agree with those. You had some really good answers there.
What do you think the biggest lie law students think about going to law school?
I've got one for you, Christina. You were a teacher before you were an attorney. What made you walk away from one career and start over?
I had begun to become burned out as a teacher, which a lot of teachers I feel like experience after being in the profession for so long. Education has changed over the years. It's been a more difficult environment to do your job in. And I felt like I was able to do more and make more of an impact on my community as an attorney. So that's what made me feel like I needed to go ahead and make that pivot.
Okay. And what was the scariest part of that jump for you?
Not knowing whether or not I could do it, knowing that I was a single mother, that I was having to work full time during the day and go to class at night. I didn't know whether or not I would be able to make it. I was able to do it successfully. Thank God. All praises to God. However, it was something that was very intimidating and daunting and the unknown of not knowing whether or not I could actually do it.
Was there ever a moment you thought it was a mistake?
Whew, those late nights. Yes, definitely. Late nights, exam prep time, and oh God, when it was time to prep for the bar. Yeah, I was doubting myself, questioning like, what were you thinking? What did you get yourself into? But at the end, when I was able to see that I was able to successfully complete what I had set out to start and accomplish, I knew that all of those were just, those doubts that seem to creep in sometimes and throw you off track. But thank God I didn't allow that to deter me and my goals. Tell me this. When did you know that you wanted to be a lawyer?
Oh, I want to say they started in high school. It's kind of a funny story. Both my parents were police officers for City of Miami Police Department. And then just kind of getting to that point where, I think I was like maybe a sophomore, maybe. And I finally told my mom. My mom started asking me, like, okay, you're getting to that point now. College is starting to come up around the corner. What's next? What are we doing? And I was like, I think I'm gonna be a police officer like you, mom. And mom was like, I did not do this
For you.
just for you to go do the same thing that I'm doing. Do something else.
Shout out to mom.
Yeah. Shout out to you, mom. I'm here. But that was the push I needed, I think, to do law school. And I'm glad I did it. I'm really, really glad I did it. I had the support system to do it and everything else. And I'm really happy with where my career is going now.
What surprised you most when you got to law school?
There's just so much work, to be honest with you. It was a time I picked up a lot of mentors. And one of the commonalities I realized amongst all of them was that they kept saying the same thing. And it was kind of a weird phrase. They kept saying the first year they scare you to death, the second year they work you to death, and the third year they bore you to death. And I was failing to understand what that meant. But I was definitely experiencing the scared to death the first year, because I think when I started law school, we had 6 courses our first semester and 7 courses our second semester of our first year. So needless to say, there was very little work-life balance, or I still don't think lawyers.
Prepping you for the real world.
Correct. I still don't think us lawyers have the luxury of work-life balance. I think it's more of a figuring out a harmony for us. But that was definitely my big shock in law school, because I'd always been one of those students that I could A's and B's and barely had to study. And law school is completely different from any other academic experience that I'd ever been through at that point.
Who was that one professor you had that inspired you the most?
Geez, you're trying to get me in trouble because there are a few of those professors, and I can't just say one.
The first one
There.
that comes to mind.
Oh my goodness.
First one that
Oh
comes to
my
mind.
God. Professor Marlise Wells, Dr. Jeremy Levitt, Professor Cato. Those were definitely some of the bigger ones that
Okay.
that stood out to me.
And what impact did Professor Marlise Wells have on you?
Oh my God. I think it's because she kind of grew up in the same area of South Florida I did. She's also from Miami as well. So she was kind of able to kind of bring a little bit of home in her understanding and perception of my experience into the classroom. Geez, I remember I could have a bad day and I try to hide it as much as possible, and she could recognize it right away. She was like, "You're not focusing today because I know there's something else that's bothering you." And those are the kind of teachers I think that change the career, the field, the attorneys, the entire game. That much care to one student, you never realize who that lawyer can become later, and the people that they mentor later. Because now, as a result, I mentor a whole bunch of law students or recent newly barred attorneys, or people who are interested in law school now, and I keep that in mind whenever I'm assisting
Yeah, I
those
think that
people.
is very important. At HBCUs, law schools, you get a lot of support and you get a lot of resources and just that camaraderie that you may not necessarily get elsewhere. So I can definitely attest to that. Like, yeah, there were professors that just definitely, made sure they checked in on you and kept you on your toes. So
Okay.
I agree with that.
You put me on the spot. So who was the professor for you?
I would say the professor that stood out the most for me, I would say Professor Duncan. He was my contracts
Okay.
professor. Like, in that class, you had to be on your P's and Q's at all times. Like, you never knew when he was gonna cold call you, and that was one of my biggest fears, being cold called. Like, anybody that's been in law school knows, like, a cold call is just, like, one of your biggest fears, and being cold called and not thinking that you're gonna have the right answer or, be on the right track, that is so terrifying. But, yeah, I would say Professor Duncan. It was something that I hated in the moment, but it was something that I feel like prepared me to be a better attorney in the long run. Because as an attorney, you have to be prepared for anything, being put on the spot. You don't know and you can't prep for everything and anything that comes your way. So that was something that definitely taught me a lot, although it was very terrifying in the moment.
I agree with you, and you kind of have me thinking about it now. There's an experience. It was Professor Maritza Reyes. She was teaching evidence in Civ Pro.
I heard about her.
Oh my goodness. I came prepared. Well, at least I thought so. My first day, I read all my cases. I briefed my cases. I thought I did well. I'd even double checked them through, there's a million supplements and everything else. I double checked them, and I get up proudly first day. And she's asking, okay, what's this? What's this? What's this? What's this? And I get through it. I think I'm doing all right. She's like, this is surface level reading.
Oh, wow.
And I was like blown away. I was so embarrassed, but I'll tell you what, it made me who I am as an attorney today. It made me who I am it made me refocus as a law student. Because I was determined at that. I was like, you will never catch me slipping again. And that relates to the practice. That's how I am now. I don't like to be embarrassed. I don't. So I'm thorough about everything that I do now. I think about it from every angle. I think about it from the perspective of opposing counsel, from the client, from the defendant, from the plaintiff, from my perspective, or any other attorney who might look at it, or even the judge, or the judicial assistant. Those are super important people as well. So definitely, definitely an experience, and definitely a professor I also forgot to mention initially.
So, with that being said, what do you consider harder, law school or actually the practice of law?
Oh, that's a hard one. I might argue they're one and the same. It feels like the only difference is one is a paycheck and the other is grades.
Right? One you're
The
paying for and one you're getting
correct.
paid.
Right, right, right. How about you?
I would say law school.
Okay.
I would definitely say law school. I feel like in law school you're having to learn what's in the textbooks and produce back what it is that they're asking of you that's being written in the textbooks as opposed to the practice of law. The practice of law, there's no one right or wrong way to do things. we're practicing. Sometimes I may view something one way, you may view it another way. Everybody's not going to see everything through the same lens and the same viewpoint, which is why it's called the practice of law.
Hmm.
So I think that being able to navigate that and just kind of, find an error in something and correcting it the next time is easier for me than in law school. I felt like there was a lot of just right or wrong, black or white.
Right. I might agree with that. I think we have a tendency to feel like law school is a lot of black and white, but I think there's those certain times in law school that I understood that there was a lot of gray area and that the law operates a lot in that gray area. Because it even got to a point for me where, like, I'd write essays, for example, and I was so focused on the analysis because I thought that's the part that really mattered. But for purposes of the bar exam or for testing, what really matters is, can you spot these issues? Can you accurately state the rule? What's your conclusion, your analysis on there? And those were a little less. The conclusion, your analysis were, you know, a little less important. But what mattered is, could you apply the rules to the issues and come out with how maybe a jury or a judge would rule on the matters?
Tell me this. What's one thing that you would stop law students from wasting time on?
Second guessing yourself.
Okay.
Um, I think that's how it's designed. I think inherently, I think we naturally want to look for, like you said earlier, always a black and white answer. And again, the field of law operates a lot in the gray spaces. Um, One of the things they even teach you when you're taking the bar exam is, if you pick an answer, don't go back to it and change it later.
Mm.
Unless you're 1,000% sure, you're willing to stake your life that the answer you're changing to is the correct one.
One thing I would tell law students to stop wasting time on is taking courses that are not bar tested. Speaking from personal experience, there were courses that I feel like I took because I had an interest in it. But when it came down to it, I think it's more important in terms of what the end goal is, which is passing the bar test, is making sure I stayed focused on learning the material and these courses, focusing on the information being presented. That's going to be something that I'm going to be tested on when it comes to taking the bar exam. Yeah, it's good to be able to, learn about different things that you have an interest in, but I think that that's something that you can do in your own personal time outside of the actual curriculum that you're having to take to prep yourself. I think that everything should be focused on what is going to prepare me the most for passing this bar exam.
But is that because you already knew that what you were going to do as an attorney
I actually didn't.
prior?
I didn't. I had not no clue. Honestly, I wanted to be an education lawyer because of my yeah, because of my background in education, which you don't hear a lot about. It's not a big niche area. Um, but I actually wanted to be an education lawyer.
What is an education lawyer?
Someone who basically is dealing with compliance of issues in education, ensuring that students, like, for example, that have disabilities, 504s, individual education plans, things like that, that those guidelines and procedures were being adhered to, their rights were not being violated. There were things that should have been done in order to ensure that they were receiving the education that they're supposed to, with the resources and support that they're supposed to get. And so just kind of like fighting for the rights of students with disabilities is what I kind of wanted to do until I got to law school and met my mentor, who was a personal injury attorney. And it was there that I said, "Mm, educational law may not be the place for me. I think I'm going to try out this personal injury thing." And then that was all she wrote from there.
Huh, that's really, really interesting. Because I think I was a little bit different. As much as I wanted to stay focused on the bar prep courses or the bar tested courses, I did kind of venture out into those electives that were a little bit uh, away from, those courses, the bar tested courses. So for example, I was a big history nerd. I've always been big history nerd. So for me, I took some courses like Black history and the law. So I understood, like, those issues of racism we were speaking about earlier, and how they applied from the legal perspective, what was on the books and what was in practice. Um, and that kind of gave me um, perspective just because I thought I was going to be a personal injury attorney before law school. I had been legal assistant before that in personal injury firms. Even that, that experience of meeting that professor, then I was like, okay, maybe there's a brief moment in time. I ultimately, ultimately decided on personal injury. But there was a point in time where I thought about maybe I could be a human rights lawyer or civil rights lawyer or international human rights lawyer, because one of my professors was heavily involved in the UN and human rights and everything else. So that gave me an interesting perspective, and it was almost something I went into. And I still would argue it's not entirely off the table, but obviously the brunt of my work here is personal injury.
Yeah, and then crazy enough, I was actually introduced to personal injury law a very long time ago. When I was an undergrad at Florida State in Tallahassee, I had a course that I had to do some hours for, some volunteer hours in community service and like internship type thing. And I was seeking out somewhere to do that at. And I was going around, I was contacting different law firms. And at that time, I actually contacted the law firm of Parks and Crump, which is the famous Benjamin Crump's law office. And it was when him and Daryl Parks was getting started out initially, their first few years of practice. And I was in their office and going through case files. At that time, there was a lot of like physical files and things like that. And I was viewing this one particular case where there was a young lady who had been in an auto accident and she had died as a result of the accident, her injuries, and she
Wow.
was pregnant at the time. So not only did
Wow.
she die, but her unborn child had died as a result of that catastrophic accident as well. So looking through the file and seeing those photos and things like that kind of sparked that interest that I had, but it was something that I kind of like suppressed over the years. I didn't feel like that was something that I could actually accomplish. So it was like my first introduction to PI, not knowing that years later I would end up being an actual PI attorney myself. And then meeting my mentor, Greg Francis, in law school and seeing all the things that he's done and all the people that he's helped and changed their lives, kind of re-sparked that interest that I had in PI law. And then it was just uphill from there. Like, because of those influences and the experience that I've had with them, it's changed my life tremendously.
And I think that's a very interesting thing about Greg is that sometimes he kind of pops out into people's lives and you never even recognize it really. Because like
Yep.
I was telling you, I took that Black History in the law course, but I think that was about the same time I was hearing about his civil rights settlement. So now I was like, okay, like there's a there's a point of intersection with personal injury and civil rights, how they can both kind of so they overlap, and you can kind of still do both because obviously he won that settlement on behalf of Black farmers.
1.25 billion.
It's still the biggest settlement.
Extraordinary, yes. So, what was something about law school that nobody warned you about?
The way it would affect my personal relationships. I would argue that a lot of law school is not only teaching you the laws, but I think most importantly, it teaches you how to read, analyze, and speak like an attorney. I would argue it's a different language. Legalese is like we like to call it in law school. And I think when you go to law school, you almost get rid of your common sense. One of the examples I always use, and one of my mentors taught me this example, was a regular person could say, hey, I got a cousin, he plays basketball, he's as good as Michael Jordan. And regular person would be like, wow, he's that good. A lawyer would be like, well, how good is Michael Jordan? Can you give me some stats? Can you give me
We're going to ask those questions.
what does that mean? How good is Michael Jordan actually?
Yeah.
And I think that gives us a hard time because we end up going into our other relationships, our personal relationships, our familial relationships with that same mindset. And a lot of times people start saying, stop lawyering me.
Or you ask too many questions.
Right, right. And I'll ask something that I typically would feel like is kind of common sense, but I'm like,
Isn't everybody asking that
yeah.
question?
And I'm
Yeah.
like, I need to understand this. Can you give me a definitive, fill this in? Like, and that's why sometimes I like talking to my
Almost
lawyer
like a
friends.
need to know. Like
Right.
this cannot be resolved. This conversation cannot conclude without me asking these questions and you giving me these answers.
Correct. I wholeheartedly agree. So that's why sometimes with my lawyer friends, I'll be like, give me a lawyer answer, please. And then my other friends are like, who aren't lawyers, I'm like, can you explain this with an extra step? And they're looking at me like, I thought you went to law school. So like, that's definitely been one of those things for me. So now we're going to be hopping into our speed round with some real tough questions. Christina, 1-word answers, no context, no explanations. Are you ready?
Okay.
Great. What's one thing from teaching that made you a better lawyer?
Presentation. So 1 word.
Okay.
What's one thing you wish you'd done differently in law school? 1 word.
Can it be hyphenated? It's
That's
like 2
fine.
words hyphenated, so you
That'll
kind of
work.
use it as 1 word. Time management.
Time management.
Ooh, this is a spicy one. What's your biggest career mistake so far?
Staying at the wrong firm too long. Ooh, there I go. More than 1 word.
That's the one. I'm here with you. I'm here with you.
All right.
I'm here with you.
Got one for you. What's one thing you wish somebody had told you at 22?
Ooh. Life is just getting started.
What was your most memorable case?
That's a really hard, because you always remember it for a different reason.
The one that stands out the most.
Okay. I'll say this one because it's recent. I recently had a case against a very seasoned attorney. This attorney has been practicing longer than I've been alive. My first motion for summary judgment, and I beat him on it. So that was that was a big moment for me. That was a big moment for me. That definitely gave me the energy, a recharge, a boost, the confidence to remind me I'm in the right place. I'm doing the things that I need to, especially in this field, because I feel like this field kind of inspires a lot of imposter syndrome, and I think a lot more attorneys experience that than we're willing to admit.
I would say my most memorable case wasn't actually a civil case. It was a criminal case. I was formerly a prosecutor before I became a civil attorney. And I had a particular case where I had a defendant who had stolen some money from out of a cash register at a grocery store. So the defendant was charged with petty theft. That theft case ended up in a not guilty verdict, in which I questioned and did not understand how, when we had the identity of the defendant, and was able to answer all of those pressing questions. But one thing I learned that is a jury is always a wild card. You can never, never predict what a jury is going to do, no matter how much evidence you present, how much information you provide to, substantiate what actually happened and support the charges. It's something that I learned the hard way, that you never know. So you have to do your best and present what you can, and hope that the jury gets it right.
This has been the Real Tough Lawyers podcast with attorney Reginald, Penn, and
Attorney Christina Brooks.
We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
RealToughLawyers.com.
Thank you for listening to Real Tough Lawyers. The Real Tough Lawyers podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice